Now, testing South Africa's democracy are the loyalists to former President Jacob Zuma, who have opposed the ANC's legal application bid to deregister the MK political party. The looming question, of course, is will the country face a resurgence of unrest again? And joining us to unpack this political dilemma in greater detail is acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian. Tash, always a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Nalu.
All right, let's get into it, Tash. I'll be very honest. In my mind, when I think of the MK and all that it is right now, it is something that I believe has been unwittingly enabled by the ruling party. But I'm keen to get your thoughts on the emergence of this party.
Yes, absolutely. Jacob Zuma was enabled by the ANC from the word go. Last night, the former president, Thabo Mbeki, was speaking at UNISA and also spoke very strongly about how he spoke about the capture of SARS, and he spoke about how load shedding actually began the month after Jacob Zuma was elected as ANC president, which is of course true. But there's such a cognitive dissonance for the ANC because this is their person. He's from the ANC, and MK is effectively a splinter party from the ANC, and it's created by the ANC. But now it seems as if Ramaphosa's administration has to protect the country from this party, because the threats that are coming through are quite serious. Yesterday, the youth leader of the MK party once again threatened that the election will not happen if MK is prevented from being on the ballot, or if Jacob Zuma is prevented from being its main candidate, which we already know is a fact. He cannot be on the main candidate to Parliament because he has been sentenced to 12 months in 15 months in jail without the option of a fine. So constitutionally, he's not eligible for that position. So we are, there is a stark risk with this party that we are likely to see riots perhaps like we did in 2021. And, we know that the security cluster reacted very badly back then. We wrote this editorial to say, well, the government needs to make sure that it protects South Africans and protects the election.
I must, ask you, Tash, as we hear these threats of insurrection here, of course, there's a South Africa risk, but also in my mind, there's an ANC risk. Now there's a new alternative that emerges here. And of course, there's also then this battle over the name of the MK party and the deregistration of it. Just help us understand what is transpiring there. And if, these are legitimate challenges with the MK, or if they're also just purely political, because politicians will politic.
Yes, absolutely, Nalu. It's so interesting. I was reading some quotes by Jacob Zuma before when COPE was launched, and as we know, the ANC also challenged the COPE's name, the name of the Congress of the People. They argued that is their that was their name, and they lost that case in court. It was Jacob Zuma who said, nobody can just use ANC names, and he's went on to do exactly that with MK. So we'll see how the court finds on that one, but that's not the main case. I think the main case is whether or not MK will be deregistered as a political party. The ANC argues that MK was irregularly registered as a political party. They didn't meet all the requirements, and the IEC effectively allowed them to just supplement the application, and the application wasn't gazetted correctly. So there's some technicalities around its registration, and that's going to be the big case that's going to be heard next week. And if the ANC has its way and MK is deregistered, I think that's when the security and law enforcement agencies need to be really careful, because that's the threats that's been made by MK, saying if the court prevents them from standing, there will be bloodshed.
I also ask you, you know, we've heard Jacob Zuma speak on behalf of the MK. Some of the values that it sounds like they stand for, I've heard, you know, things of challenging issues of abortion, for instance. And I'm wondering, Natasha, just how all of this exists in this world that is actually turning to become more conservative, more polarized. I really could say that we're going backwards here, but that actually received quite a bit of a reaction, the kind of reaction I didn't expect.
Absolutely, you know, it's so worrying that a party which says teenage girls who are pregnant, who are teenagers, should be placed on like Robben Island or in Pollsmoor prison or whatever it is that they said. I mean, it's astounding that they even have any support. But what I would urge is for us to wait and see how their support that they seemingly have translates at the ballot, because my instinct tells me that sorry, excuse me, the MK party is receiving a lot of media attention at the moment. It's receiving a lot of attention with its leaders saying these really bizarre and ludicrous things, and whether that appeals to ordinary South Africans has to be tested at the ballot. I personally don't think it'll gain massive amounts of support outside of KwaZulu-Natal, and even in KwaZulu-Natal, I think the IFP, the resurgence of the IFP is going to cause a real challenge for even for Jacob Zuma. So I think let's wait and see. But it does tell a worrying story about, the kinds of things that this party espouses, and compared with the amount of support it seemingly has, is quite worrying.
Before I let you go, I mean, I must ask you this, and I think it's something we must try to deduce here by the very introduction of this party to the political, realm in South Africa. The risk profile of this election has changed quite a bit.
It has. I mean, there's definitely concern by across the board, business, investors. We saw, Nalu, in KZN, what's been happening with the SAMU strike, and businesses in eThekwini have come out and said that this strike is purely political, and it's having a harrowing impact on that metro, on businesses in that metro. So investors are concerned. I think even the DA's very misplaced letter to the US to ask for additional observers indicates that the risk profile of this election is quite high. The IEC as well, for its part, is also taking this election very seriously, purely because of the risk, the high risk profile, and also because it's a new election, if I may put it that way. For the first time, we're going to have 3 ballot papers. For the first time, independent candidates are going to be contested. And for the first time, the ANC may fall under 50%. So we are in uncharted territory here.
Well, Tash, we'll keep talking leading up to all of it. Always a pleasure having you here on Business Lunch. That was the acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian.